The laughter started before anyone realized a life was about to change. Not because the joke was funny. Not because the room was enjoying itself. The laughter came from the kind of cruelty that hides behind a smile. The kind that leaves no bruises. The kind people remember forever. Nearly 30 guests sat around a long private dining table inside one of the most expensive restaurants in downtown Chicago. Crystal chandeliers glowed overhead. Servers moved quietly between tables. Business executives discussed investments and promotions. Sex seemed to fill every corner of the room. Then Amanda Brooks decided to make Ethan Carter the center of attention. At first, her comments sounded harmless. A playful remark about his old pickup truck. A casual observation about his apartment. A joke about how he still brought lunch from home instead of ordering expensive meals. A few people chuckled. Amanda noticed, and she kept going. Across the table, Ethan sat quietly. His expression barely changed. But inside, every word landed harder than the last. 3 years. That was how long they had been together. 3 years of birthdays. 3 years of plans. 3 years of believing they were building a future. Yet somehow the woman who once admired his determination now seemed embarrassed by everything he was. Amanda continued speaking. She talked about ambition, about success, about surrounding yourself with people who elevated your future. Then she casually mentioned how frustrating it could be when someone lacked the drive to become more. Her eyes drifted toward Ethan. The room immediately understood. The message was not subtle. Several guests exchanged uncomfortable glances. Others suddenly became interested in their drinks. Nobody wanted to interfere. Nobody wanted to become part of the scene unfolding in front of them. Then Amanda crossed a line she could never uncross. She suggested that some people simply became comfortable being average. The room fell silent. Not the normal kind of silence, the dangerous kind. The kind that arrives when everyone knows something is wrong but nobody knows what to say. Every eye turned toward Ethan, waiting, expecting anger, expecting embarrassment, expecting something, anything. Instead, Ethan slowly placed his napkin on the table, calmly stood up, reached for the check, paid for his meal, and walked away. No argument, no shouting, no dramatic speech, nothing. The restaurant doors closed behind him. Amanda watched him leave. For a brief moment, uncertainty appeared on her face. Not guilt, not regret, just confusion. Because Ethan's reaction was not what she expected. Most people fought back. Most people defended themselves. Most people demanded respect. Ethan simply left, as if something more important occupied his thoughts. And in a way, it did, because earlier that afternoon, Ethan had received a phone call. A phone call capable of changing everything. A phone call he had not told anyone about. Not his friends. Not his coworkers. And certainly not Amanda. At the time, he was not even sure whether it was real. By the time he reached the parking lot, the cold night air hit his face. The city lights reflected across nearby buildings. Traffic moved steadily through downtown streets. Normally, he would have felt angry, humiliated, heartbroken. Instead, he felt exhausted, because the dinner had not revealed anything new. It had only confirmed something he already suspected. Amanda no longer saw him the same way. The signs had been there for months. Small comments, comparisons, subtle criticisms disguised as advice. Every conversation seemed to revolve around status, money, titles, appearances. The woman he fell in love with had slowly disappeared beneath a growing obsession with success. His phone vibrated. The screen displayed a familiar name, Harold Mercer. Ethan answered immediately. The older man's voice sounded weak. Age and illness had stolen much of his strength over the past year. Yet his mind remained sharp. Harold wasted little time. He asked whether Ethan had considered the offer, whether he had reached a decision, whether he understood how important the opportunity truly was. Ethan looked across the city skyline before responding. The truth was simple. He still did not know. Because the offer sounded impossible, almost absurd, the kind of opportunity people dreamed about but rarely received. Harold reminded him of something important. Great opportunities rarely arrive when life feels convenient. Sometimes they appear in the middle of chaos. Then the call ended, leaving Ethan alone with his thoughts. Back inside the restaurant, Amanda continued socializing. If anyone noticed the tension left behind by Ethan's departure, they quickly ignored it. The evening moved forward. Wine glasses filled. Conversations resumed. Laughter returned. Among the guests sat Victor Reynolds, a senior executive at Horizon Consulting. Confident, wealthy, well-connected. The kind of man who attracted attention without trying. For months, Victor had shown unusual interest in Amanda. Most people viewed it as harmless professional mentorship, a successful executive helping a rising manager navigate corporate life. At least, that was the public explanation. The private reality was more complicated. Private lunches had become common. Late-night messages had become routine. Personal conversations increasingly replaced professional ones. Lines were blurring, and Amanda was not stopping it. Across the room sat another guest, a quiet financial analyst named Lucas Bennett. Unlike most people, Lucas paid attention. Not because he enjoyed gossip, because numbers had trained him to notice patterns. And recently, several patterns surrounding Victor Reynolds felt strange. Unusual travel reimbursements, questionable expense reports, private meetings that somehow appeared on corporate budgets. Nothing serious enough to raise alarms. Not yet, but enough to catch his attention. Lucas quietly observed. Something told him the story was not as simple as it appeared. Hours later, Ethan finally arrived home. His apartment was small, simple. Nothing about it looked impressive. The furniture was modest. The walls carried few decorations. Most people would overlook it without a second thought, yet everything inside represented sacrifice. Every possession told a story. The worn desk where he worked late nights. The bookshelf filled with business manuals borrowed instead of purchased. The framed graduation photo of his younger sister, a graduation made possible largely because Ethan spent years helping pay her tuition. Nobody at the restaurant knew that. Nobody knew about the hospital bills he covered after his mother's illness. Nobody knew about the second jobs he worked in his 20s. Nobody knew about the opportunities he declined so others could succeed. People often judged what they could see. Very few bothered to understand what they could not. Ethan sat at the desk and opened his laptop. Several confidential documents filled the screen. Financial reports, growth projections, corporate evaluations. At the top of nearly every document appeared the same company name, Sterling Technologies, one of the fastest-growing industrial technology firms in the country. The same company Harold Mercer helped build decades earlier. The same company now facing a leadership transition. The same company offering Ethan an opportunity so significant that he still struggled to believe it. For nearly 4 years, Ethan had quietly volunteered his expertise to help Sterling solve operational challenges. Not for money, not for recognition. Simply because Harold once helped him during a difficult chapter of life. While others chased promotions, Ethan focused on solving problems. While others chased visibility, Ethan focused on results. Harold never forgot that. Neither did Sterling's board of directors. A notification appeared on Ethan's screen. An email marked confidential. He opened it. The message contained a formal invitation. A board meeting, 48 hours away. Final decision pending. The words felt surreal. Ethan stared at the screen for several seconds, then leaned back in his chair. The opportunity was becoming real. Very real. What he did not know was that another document inside the acquisition reports contained a familiar name. Horizon Consulting, Amanda's company. At the moment, it meant nothing. Just another potential acquisition target. Another business among dozens under evaluation. Another collection of numbers. But within weeks, that connection would transform everything. Not because Ethan wanted revenge, because fate had a strange sense of timing. Meanwhile, Amanda returned home feeling strangely unsatisfied. The dinner should have felt like a victory. Instead, an uncomfortable feeling lingered beneath the surface. She replayed Ethan's reaction. Or rather, his lack of reaction. Something about it bothered her. It felt final. As though he had already accepted losing her. As though he had already moved on. The thought irritated her more than she wanted to admit. Because deep down, Amanda expected him to fight. Expected him to chase her. Expected him to prove he was willing to become more. Instead, he simply walked away. For the first time all evening, uncertainty entered her mind. But she quickly pushed it aside, because Victor Reynolds had just sent another message. And the future she imagined seemed far more exciting than the one she was leaving behind. At least, that is what she believed. What Amanda could not see was that the foundation beneath that future was already beginning to crack. And when those cracks finally widened, they would expose secrets, betrayals, and truths that nobody saw coming. Including the truth about Ethan Carter, the man everyone underestimated. The man everyone overlooked. The man who, in less than 30 days, would walk into a room full of executives and completely change the course of their lives. But before that happened, Amanda would make another decision, a much worse decision, one that would destroy any chance of repairing what she had broken. And when that moment arrived, even the people who witnessed the humiliation at dinner would be shocked by what happened next. The end of the story was not approaching. It was only beginning. The next morning began with a message. Not a phone call, not a conversation, not even enough respect for a face-to-face meeting. Just a message. Short, carefully written, emotionally empty. Amanda explained that she needed time to think. She claimed their relationship had reached a crossroads. She suggested they wanted different things from life. The words sounded thoughtful, mature, reasonable, but beneath the carefully chosen language hid a much simpler truth. Amanda no longer believed Ethan belonged in the future she imagined for herself. For several minutes, Ethan stared at the screen. Not because he was shocked, because he was not. The message merely confirmed what months of behavior had already revealed. The relationship had been dying long before the dinner. The humiliation had simply exposed the body. Eventually, he placed the phone face down on the table. No reply, no argument, no attempt to change her mind. Some battles stop being worth fighting once the outcome becomes obvious. Meanwhile, across the city, Amanda felt strangely disappointed. She had expected resistance, expected questions, expected emotion. Instead, Ethan's silence followed her like a shadow. The lack of a response felt more unsettling than any angry message could have. But she refused to dwell on it. Because Victor Reynolds was waiting. And Victor represented everything Ethan did not. Or at least everything Amanda believed Ethan did not. Success, influence, luxury, status. The image of the future she desperately wanted. That afternoon, Amanda met Victor at a private restaurant overlooking Lake Michigan. Officially, it was a business lunch. Unofficially, neither of them treated it that way anymore. The conversation quickly drifted away from work. Victor discussed executive retreats, investment opportunities, vacation properties, private clubs. The lifestyle sounded exciting, effortless, powerful. Amanda listened carefully. Every story reinforced the belief that she was moving towards something bigger, something better. Yet Victor revealed surprisingly little about himself. The details remained vague. Specific questions often received general answers, Amanda noticed, then ignored it. People frequently overlook warning signs when those signs interfere with their dreams. Across town, Ethan entered Sterling Technologies' headquarters. Unlike Horizon Consulting's sleek glass tower, Sterling's main building reflected practicality rather than image. The company valued performance more than appearance, results more than presentations. The board meeting began shortly after noon. Several directors occupied seats around a polished conference table. Financial advisors sat nearby. Legal representatives reviewed documents. At the head of the room sat Harold Mercer. His health had deteriorated noticeably, yet the respect he commanded remained unchanged. The chairman eventually stood. The room became silent. After months of discussions, evaluations, and debate, the board had reached its conclusion. Sterling needed leadership capable of guiding its next stage of growth. The company was expanding aggressively. New markets were opening. Major acquisitions were under consideration. Mistakes would be costly. The future demanded someone trustworthy, someone disciplined, someone who understood both people and operations, someone who prioritized responsibility over ego. Then the chairman looked directly at Ethan. Every other face followed. The decision was unanimous. Effective immediately, Ethan Carter was appointed Chief Operations Executive of Sterling Technologies. For a brief moment, the room disappeared. Years of sacrifice flashed through his mind. The second jobs, the long nights, the disappointments, the opportunities he turned down, the responsibilities he carried. All of it led here. The board members applauded. Harold smiled quietly. Several executives shook Ethan's hand. Yet despite the significance of the moment, Ethan felt surprisingly calm. Because leadership was not a trophy. It was a responsibility. One he intended to earn. The appointment remained confidential. At least for now. Public announcements would come later. After strategic planning was complete. After acquisition negotiations advanced further. After several important pieces fell into place. Including one piece Ethan had not even noticed yet. Horizon Consulting. Amanda's employer. The company Sterling was quietly evaluating for acquisition. Back at Horizon, life appeared normal. at least on the surface. Employees attended meetings. Projects moved forward. Deadlines approached. Yet beneath the routine, financial pressure was growing. Several major contracts underperformed. Client retention numbers slipped. Revenue forecasts weakened. Senior leadership became increasingly anxious. Most employees remained unaware. A few noticed. Lucas Bennett noticed. The quiet analyst spent most days buried beneath spreadsheets and financial reports. Numbers rarely lied. People often did. Over recent months, Lucas repeatedly encountered unusual transactions linked to Victor Reynolds' division. The discrepancies were small, almost invisible, individually insignificant. Together, they formed a pattern, a troubling one. One evening, long after most employees left, Lucas stayed behind reviewing expense documentation. Hours passed. The office gradually emptied. Silence settled across the floor. Then he found something. A reimbursement request connected to a client meeting. The documentation did not match. The location was wrong. The dates were inconsistent. The signatures appeared rushed. Lucas frowned. One discrepancy meant little. But this was not the first. He began digging deeper. Additional reports revealed similar issues. Travel expenses, entertainment budgets, vendor payments. Nothing catastrophic, nothing illegal, but enough to raise serious questions. Lucas started collecting copies. Not because he planned to accuse anyone, because experience taught him an important lesson. When patterns emerge, documentation matters. Elsewhere, Amanda's relationship with Victor continued developing. Private dinners became routine. Weekend meetings appeared with increasing frequency. Coworkers began whispering. Rumors spread. Some employees questioned the relationship. Others assumed Amanda was positioning herself for promotion. Nobody knew the full story, not even Amanda, because Victor carefully controlled what people knew about him. His successes received attention. His failures remained hidden. His confidence looked impressive. His secrets remained invisible. For now, days turned into weeks. Ethan immersed himself in Sterling's operations. The workload was enormous. Department reviews, strategic planning, operational restructuring, acquisition evaluations. Most executives remained in conference rooms. Ethan spent time on factory floors, warehouse docks, customer service centers. He listened more than he spoke. Employees appreciated it immediately. Managers respected it. Results followed quickly. Production efficiency increased. Employee turnover decreased. Client satisfaction improved. Investors noticed. Board members noticed. Industry competitors noticed. The same qualities Amanda once considered weaknesses were becoming Ethan's greatest strengths. Patience, consistency, humility, discipline. The things that rarely looked impressive during introductions. The things that built lasting success. One evening, Harold requested a private meeting. The older man looked tired, more tired than usual. The effects of illness had become difficult to ignore. Yet his eyes remained sharp. He reviewed several acquisition files with Ethan. Most involved routine business evaluations. Then Harold stopped at one folder. Horizon Consulting. The company immediately stood out. Financially, the acquisition made sense. Strategically, it offered valuable market access. Operationally, it presented opportunities. But concerns existed. Internal inefficiencies. Questionable leadership decisions. Accounting irregularities requiring further review. Harold believed deeper investigation was necessary. Ethan agreed. Neither man realized how personal that decision would eventually become. Meanwhile, Amanda's confidence continued growing. She viewed her future through the lens of Victor's influence. Promotion seemed inevitable. Recognition felt close. Success appeared guaranteed. The possibility of failure never entered her mind. That was the danger. People become vulnerable when they mistake confidence for certainty. And Victor Reynolds was very good at projecting confidence. The illusion finally began cracking during an executive planning session. Financial concerns surfaced. Questions emerged. Certain departments attracted increased scrutiny. Victor appeared unusually defensive. Amanda noticed immediately. His answers sounded rehearsed. His explanations felt incomplete. For the first time, doubt appeared. Only briefly, but it appeared. Then another surprise arrived. A company-wide memo. Employees received the announcement simultaneously. Leadership had authorized formal acquisition discussions with Sterling Technologies. Shock spread instantly. Hallways filled with speculation. Departments buzzed with rumors. Questions exploded throughout the building. Would jobs remain secure? Would management change? Would executives survive the transition? Nobody knew. Victor publicly welcomed the news. Privately, anxiety appeared behind his confidence. The acquisition meant auditors, reviews, investigations, fresh eyes examining old records. And fresh eyes often discovered things others missed. A few days later, Sterling's review teams arrived. Financial analysts, legal advisors, operational specialists. Among the first documents requested were departmental expense records, vendor contracts, travel reports, the exact areas connected to Lucas Bennett's concerns. The witness had unknowingly started a chain reaction. One document led to another. One discrepancy led to questions. Questions led to audits. Audits led to discoveries. And somewhere within thousands of pages of financial records, a storm was beginning to form. A storm heading directly toward Victor Reynolds. But he was not the only person about to receive a surprise, because while Horizon employees worried about acquisition rumors, Sterling's board finalized another decision: the public leadership announcement. The moment when employees would learn who would oversee the merger. The moment Amanda's world would begin collapsing. The moment Ethan Carter would step out of the shadows. And when that day arrived, the woman who called him a failure would discover that the man she abandoned now possessed authority over the entire future of her company. But before that shocking reveal happened, investigators would uncover something hidden inside Victor Reynolds' financial records. Something much worse than anyone expected. Something capable of destroying reputations overnight. And once the truth surfaced, there would be no way to stop what came next. The acquisition process officially began 3 days later. From the outside, it looked routine. Press releases, corporate announcements, executive meetings. The kind of business activity that rarely attracted public attention. Inside Horizon Consulting, however, the atmosphere felt completely different. Employees sensed change. Managers sensed danger. Executives sensed uncertainty. Nobody knew exactly what the future would look like, but everyone understood one thing. The company they knew was about to disappear. Amanda walked through the office with growing confidence. The acquisition did not frighten her. If anything, it excited her. She believed people like Victor Reynolds would thrive under any leadership structure. Powerful executives always landed on their feet. At least, that was the story she told herself. Victor encouraged that belief. Whenever concerns surfaced, he dismissed them with a smile. Whenever rumors spread, he projected confidence. Whenever employees worried, he reassured them. Yet something about him had changed. The difference was subtle, almost invisible. But it was there. The late-night messages became shorter. The relaxed attitude became forced. The confidence occasionally cracked when he thought nobody was watching. Amanda noticed, then ignored it. Again, because accepting the truth would require questioning every decision she made over the previous months. And that was a conversation she was not ready to have. Across the city, Ethan Carter's days had become a blur of responsibility. The title of Chief Operations Executive carried enormous pressure. Every decision affected people. Every mistake carried consequences. Every opportunity demanded action. Yet something unusual happened during his first month. Employees responded to him almost immediately. Not because of authority, because of trust. He visited manufacturing facilities personally. He spoke with warehouse staff. He listened to customer service representatives. He asked questions executives rarely asked. What problems slow you down? What resources are missing? What changes would actually help? The answers surprised many senior leaders. Small improvements created major results. Processes became more efficient. Production delays decreased. Employee satisfaction increased. Within weeks, Sterling achieved one of the strongest operational performances in company history. Investors celebrated. Board members gained confidence. Industry analysts took notice. And Ethan's reputation quietly grew. The man Amanda called average was becoming one of the most respected executives in the industry. Not because he chased recognition, because he earned it. Meanwhile, Horizon's financial review continued. Teams from Sterling examined thousands of documents. Most reviews produced ordinary findings, minor inefficiencies, routine recommendations, nothing dramatic. Then investigators reached Victor Reynolds' division, and the questions began. At first, the discrepancies seemed manageable: unclear expense classifications, documentation gaps, approval inconsistencies, issues that appeared administrative rather than serious. But every answer created two new questions. Every explanation revealed another inconsistency. The deeper investigators looked, the more uncomfortable the situation became. One afternoon, Lucas Bennett received an unexpected call. A member of Sterling's audit team requested a meeting. Lucas immediately understood why. The documents he collected months earlier were attracting attention. Inside a conference room, auditors reviewed records with him. Travel reimbursements, entertainment expenses, vendor payments. The evidence painted a troubling picture, not necessarily criminal, but certainly problematic. Lucas answered every question honestly, carefully, professionally. When the meeting ended, one auditor thanked him. That simple statement told Lucas everything he needed to know. The investigation was becoming serious. Very serious. Elsewhere, Victor's anxiety continued growing. For the first time in years, circumstances existed beyond his control. Auditors could not be influenced. Documents could not be charmed. Numbers could not be persuaded. Facts remained facts, and facts were becoming dangerous. One evening, Amanda arrived at Victor's office unannounced. She expected their usual conversation. Instead, she found him staring at financial reports. His expression looked tense, almost fearful. The sight immediately unsettled her. Victor quickly dismissed her concerns, claiming acquisition reviews always created temporary stress, claiming everything remained under control, claiming there was nothing to worry about. Amanda wanted to believe him, but doubt had already entered the room, and doubt rarely leaves quietly. As weeks passed, another story began spreading through Sterling. Employees shared stories about Ethan, stories that seemed insignificant individually, powerful collectively. A warehouse worker mentioned how Ethan personally helped resolve a scheduling problem. A receptionist described how he remembered her name after meeting her only once. A maintenance supervisor recalled receiving direct support for long-ignored equipment issues. None of these actions generated headlines. None created publicity. Yet they created loyalty. The kind of loyalty money cannot buy. Harold Mercer watched from a distance. The older man understood something many executives never learned. Leadership is not measured by how many people work for someone. It is measured by how many people trust someone. And people trusted Ethan. That trust would soon become important, because the biggest moment of his career was approaching. The public leadership announcement, the day hundreds of Horizon employees would learn who Sterling selected to oversee integration. Excitement spread throughout both companies. Speculation reached extraordinary levels. Industry experts predicted outside leadership hires. Employees expected famous executives. Managers debated possible candidates endlessly. Nobody guessed the truth. Not even Amanda. Not even Victor. Several days before the announcement, Sterling's investigation reached a critical stage. Auditors completed their preliminary findings. The results landed on Ethan's desk. He reviewed every page carefully. The conclusions were troubling. Multiple policy violations, questionable financial approvals, improper expense practices, a pattern of behavior that demonstrated poor judgment and weak oversight. Victor Reynolds' name appeared repeatedly. Ethan closed the report and leaned back in his chair. For several moments, he simply stared through the office window. The irony was not lost on him. Months earlier, Victor had been little more than a stranger. Now that stranger occupied the center of a major corporate investigation. Ethan still knew nothing about Victor's personal connection to Amanda. The situation remained entirely professional from his perspective. The evidence would determine the outcome, nothing else. That evening, Harold stopped by Ethan's office. The conversation quickly shifted toward the upcoming integration meeting. Thousands of careers would be impacted. The announcement needed to inspire confidence. Employees needed leadership they could trust. Harold smiled, then revealed something Ethan had not expected. The board planned to introduce him personally, not through an email, not through a press release, on stage, in front of everyone. The realization made Ethan uncomfortable. Public recognition never interested him. But Harold insisted. People needed to see the person guiding the future. People needed to understand why the board trusted him. Reluctantly, Ethan agreed. Meanwhile, Amanda received an invitation to the integration event. Attendance mandatory. Executive leadership announcement included. The message immediately sparked excitement. Victor appeared on the list of invited executives, a positive sign. Or so she assumed. That night, Amanda allowed herself to imagine the future. Perhaps Victor would secure an even larger role after the merger. Perhaps she would receive a promotion. Perhaps the acquisition would accelerate everything she wanted. The dream felt close, closer than ever. What Amanda did not know was that the future she imagined no longer existed. Behind the scenes, the investigation into Victor had entered its final phase. The evidence was overwhelming. Decisions were already being drafted, recommendations already written, consequences already approaching. And while Victor worried about auditors, Amanda remained focused on something else entirely. Status, titles, prestige, the same things that caused her to underestimate Ethan Carter. The same mistake she would soon regret more than any other. Because only days remained before the integration meeting. Only days remained before Ethan walked onto that stage. Only days remained before Amanda discovered that the man she publicly mocked had become one of the most powerful leaders in the organization. But even that shocking reveal was not the biggest surprise waiting for her. Because on the very same day Ethan's success became visible to everyone, Victor's carefully constructed image would begin collapsing in front of the entire company. And once that collapse started, there would be no stopping it. The truth had spent years hiding behind confidence. Now it was preparing to step into the light. The morning of the integration meeting arrived with an unusual energy. Employees showed up early. Parking lots filled faster than normal. Elevators remained crowded. Hallways buzzed with endless speculation. Nobody wanted to miss what was about to happen. For weeks, rumors had spread throughout both companies. Executives debated possible leadership appointments. Managers exchanged theories. Employees guessed names. Every prediction sounded confident. Almost every prediction was wrong. Inside Horizon Consulting's headquarters, Amanda stood before a mirror adjusting her blazer. The reflection staring back at her looked successful, professional, ambitious. Exactly the image she spent years trying to create. Yet beneath that confidence, anxiety lingered. The acquisition had changed the atmosphere inside the company. People seemed nervous. Conversations felt different. Questions had replaced certainty. Even Victor appeared unsettled. That bothered her more than she wanted to admit. When she arrived at the office, Victor was already there, reviewing documents, checking emails, making phone calls. His usual confidence looked strained. His smile appeared forced. Amanda asked whether everything was okay. Victor immediately assured her it was. The auditors had completed their reviews. The acquisition was moving forward. There was nothing to worry about. The answer sounded rehearsed. Amanda noticed. Again. And once again, she chose not to press further. The truth often stands directly in front of people. Many simply refuse to look at it. A few floors below, Lucas Bennett entered the building carrying a small folder. The same folder that contained copies of the documents he collected months earlier. The same folder that quietly helped investigators understand what was happening inside Victor's division. Lucas never expected recognition. He never wanted attention. He simply believed facts mattered. And facts were about to change everything. By mid-morning, employees began filling the main conference auditorium. Hundreds of chairs stretched across the massive space. Large projection screens dominated the stage. Company logos appeared throughout the room. The atmosphere felt electric. Part excitement, part nervousness, part curiosity. Nobody knew exactly what was coming. Amanda and Victor took seats near the front. Executives occupied several reserved rows. Managers sat directly behind them. Employees filled every remaining section. The room slowly reached capacity. Then the lights dimmed. Conversations faded. Silence settled over the crowd. The presentation began. Sterling representatives discussed future goals, growth opportunities, expansion strategies, operational improvements. Employees listened politely, but everyone waited for the same thing. Leadership announcements, the names, the decisions, the future. Eventually, the presenter reached the final section. The room became noticeably quieter. The speaker described the person chosen to lead integration efforts. Someone trusted by investors. Someone respected by employees. Someone selected unanimously by Sterling's board. Someone who recently helped drive extraordinary operational success. Amanda glanced toward Victor, expecting confidence, expecting satisfaction, expecting optimism. Instead, she noticed uncertainty. For the first time, Victor did not appear sure of anything. Then the presenter revealed the name. Ethan Carter. Amanda blinked, certain she misheard. The name echoed through the auditorium. Ethan Carter. Her mind immediately rejected the possibility. There had to be another Ethan Carter. A different executive, a different leader, a different person entirely. Then the side door opened, and reality entered the room. Ethan walked onto the stage. For several seconds, nobody moved. Then applause erupted. Board members stood. Executives stood. Investors stood. Soon hundreds of employees rose to their feet. The ovation spread throughout the auditorium. Amanda remained frozen. Victor remained frozen. The scene unfolding before them felt impossible. The same Ethan Carter. The same man Amanda mocked in front of strangers. The same man she considered unsuccessful. The same man she abandoned because she believed he lacked ambition. Now stood at the center of one of the largest corporate transitions in the company's history. The irony was overwhelming. Amanda felt her stomach drop. Every memory from the restaurant returned at once. The jokes. The laughter. The humiliation. The certainty. Most painful of all, she remembered believing she was right. Ethan stepped to the podium. His voice remained calm, professional, confident. Not arrogant. Not bitter. Not vindictive. He spoke about opportunity. Growth. Culture. Trust. Shared success. Not once did he mention the past. Not once did he acknowledge Amanda. Not once did he attempt revenge. That somehow made everything worse. Because his success required no explanation, no defense, no argument. The truth stood on the stage for everyone to see. The presentation concluded with another standing ovation. Employees flooded into hallways discussing what they had witnessed. Shock spread through every department. Questions turned into admiration. Admiration turned into excitement. People wanted to know more about Ethan. More importantly, they wanted to work for him. Amanda remained seated long after most employees left. She felt as though the ground beneath her had disappeared. Everything she believed about Ethan suddenly looked wrong. Everything she believed about success suddenly looked incomplete. But her day was about to become much worse. Because while employees celebrated the leadership announcement, another meeting was beginning behind closed doors. A meeting involving auditors, corporate attorneys, senior executives, and Victor Reynolds. The investigation had officially concluded. Months of reviews, thousands of documents, countless hours of analysis. The findings were final. Victor entered the conference room expecting difficult questions. What he encountered instead were consequences. The discussion lasted less than 45 minutes. The evidence spoke louder than any explanation. Policy violations, improper approvals, misrepresented expenditures, repeated failures in financial oversight. No single issue guaranteed termination. Together, they painted a damaging picture. By the end of the meeting, the decision was made. Victor Reynolds' employment was terminated effective immediately. His executive privileges were revoked. Company access was suspended. Security protocols activated. Years of influence disappeared in less than an hour. News traveled quickly. Executives learned first. Managers learned second. Employees learned moments later. Shock swept through the building. The powerful executive many admired had fallen. The confident leader many trusted had failed. The image he carefully constructed for years collapsed almost instantly. Amanda heard the news while standing near the elevators. At first, she refused to believe it. There had to be a mistake, a misunderstanding, an overreaction. Then reality became unavoidable. Victor emerged from the executive floor carrying a small box. No assistants, no privileges, no authority. Just a cardboard box. The symbol of a career ending. Employees watched from a distance. Some looked shocked. Others looked unsurprised. Nobody approached him. Nobody offered support. People who once surrounded him suddenly disappeared. The transformation was brutal. Amanda stared in disbelief. This was not supposed to happen. Victor represented the future she chose. The future she sacrificed Ethan for. Yet that future was walking toward the exit carrying a cardboard box. Victor briefly looked toward her. Neither spoke. There was nothing left to say. Moments later, he disappeared through the lobby doors. And just like that, he was gone. The silence that followed felt heavier than any conversation. For the first time, Amanda allowed herself to confront the truth. She had not simply underestimated Ethan. She had completely misjudged character. She chose appearances over substance, confidence over integrity, image over reality. And now reality was exposing every mistake. Over the following days, employees continued discussing two stories: the rise of Ethan Carter, the fall of Victor Reynolds. The contrast fascinated everyone. One man quietly earned trust over years. The other spent years protecting an image. One was rising, one was falling. And both stories intersected at the exact moment Amanda realized what she lost. But her greatest lesson was still ahead. Because despite everything that happened, despite the humiliation, despite the betrayal, despite the breakup, Ethan had not sought revenge. He had not punished her. He had not used his authority against her. And that unexpected kindness would soon force Amanda to face a painful question. What if the greatest mistake of her life was not choosing Victor? What if the greatest mistake was failing to recognize Ethan's value before the world did? The answer would arrive during one final conversation. A conversation neither of them would ever forget. And when it ended, Amanda would finally understand the true cost of judging a person's worth by what they appear to have. Because some losses cannot be measured in money. Some losses cannot be repaired. And some lessons arrive only after the opportunity to change them has already disappeared. For the first time in years, Amanda Brooks dreaded coming to work. The feeling surprised her. For most of her career, the office had represented ambition, progress, opportunity. Now it represented something entirely different: regret. Every hallway reminded her of the integration meeting. Every leadership announcement reminded her of Ethan. Every conversation seemed to include his name. Employees admired him. Managers respected him. Executives trusted him. The same qualities she once dismissed had become the foundation of his success. And there was no escaping that reality. Weeks passed. Sterling's integration of Horizon Consulting moved forward smoothly. Departments stabilized. Processes improved. Employee morale increased. The transition many feared became a success story. Much of the credit went to Ethan. Yet he never appeared interested in taking credit. Whenever praise arrived, he redirected attention toward teams, managers, employees, departments, anyone except himself. The behavior confused some people. Most executives loved recognition. Ethan seemed indifferent to it. Amanda noticed. The observation only deepened her regret, because she finally understood something she should have understood years earlier. Character reveals itself most clearly after success arrives. Money changes some people. Power changes others. Neither changed Ethan. One afternoon, Amanda found herself standing outside Ethan's office. The decision to request a meeting had taken nearly 3 weeks. 3 weeks of hesitation. 3 weeks of second-guessing. 3 weeks of wondering whether the conversation would make things better or worse. A receptionist eventually informed her that Ethan would see her. Amanda entered the office slowly. The room overlooked the city skyline. The view was impressive. The office itself was surprisingly modest. No extravagant artwork. No unnecessary luxury. No displays designed to impress visitors. Just organization. Efficiency. Purpose. Very little about Ethan appeared different. Only his title had changed. For several moments, silence filled the room. Neither seemed eager to begin. Finally, Amanda spoke. The words came slowly, carefully. She admitted making mistakes, admitted allowing ambition to cloud her judgment, admitted becoming obsessed with appearances. The confession felt uncomfortable, because every sentence forced her to confront truths she spent months avoiding. Ethan listened quietly, never interrupting, never correcting, never judging. When she finished, the room became silent again. Amanda expected anger, expected disappointment, expected criticism. Instead, Ethan remained calm. The response he eventually gave would stay with her for the rest of her life. Success had never been the problem. Ambition had never been the problem. Wanting more from life was not wrong. The problem was how she measured human value. Some people evaluate others based on titles. Some evaluate others based on income. Some evaluate others based on status. Those measurements often reveal very little about a person's actual character. Character appears during difficult moments. Character appears when nobody is watching. Character appears when helping someone offers no reward. Amanda looked down, because she knew exactly what he meant. The restaurant, the jokes, the humiliation, the breakup. Every decision suddenly appeared through a different lens. For months, she believed Ethan lacked ambition. Now she realized she never understood his ambitions at all. He was not trying to impress strangers. He was supporting family, helping friends, solving problems, building something meaningful. The things she overlooked were the things that mattered most. Eventually, Amanda asked the question she feared most. Could things have been different? The answer arrived gently, but firmly. Trust takes years to build, moments to break. Some relationships survive betrayal. Others do not. Not because forgiveness is impossible, because consequences are real. The conversation ended without anger, without accusations, without drama. And somehow that made it more painful. Cruelty would have been easier. Cruelty creates villains. Kindness forces people to face themselves. Amanda left the office understanding something important. Chapter she shared with Ethan was over. Not because he hated her, because life had moved forward, and some doors closed permanently. Months continued passing. The company thrived. New contracts arrived. Expansion accelerated. Employee satisfaction reached record levels. Industry publications began highlighting Sterling as a model for successful corporate leadership. Ethan's reputation grew far beyond the company itself, yet the people closest to him noticed something unusual. Sex never changed his routine. He still arrived early, still listened carefully, still treated everyone with respect, still remembered where he came from. The same warehouse employees who once worked beside him could still approach him without fear. The same administrative staff still received his attention. The same maintenance workers still heard, "Thank you." Those habits mattered, because people remembered how leaders treated them long after they forgot quarterly numbers. Nearly a year after the acquisition, Sterling hosted a company-wide celebration. Employees from every division attended. Families joined. Retirees returned. The event marked one of the most successful years in company history. The atmosphere felt joyful, relaxed, optimistic. Near the end of the evening, Harold Mercer stepped onto the stage. The crowd immediately quieted. Many employees viewed him as a legend, a founder, a mentor, a leader who helped build Sterling from the ground up. Age and illness had weakened him physically, but his presence still commanded respect. Harold looked across the audience before speaking. His voice remained steady. He discussed business briefly. Growth, challenges, success. Then the speech became personal. Years earlier, Sterling faced one of the most difficult periods in its history. Financial pressure mounted. Operational problems increased. Several respected professionals walked away. Some feared failure. Others pursued better opportunities. Support became difficult to find. Then Harold shared something few employees knew. During those difficult years, one person continued showing up. Not because of a contract. Not because of compensation. Not because of recognition. Because he genuinely wanted to help. That person was Ethan Carter. The room became silent. Employees listened carefully. Harold described the countless hours Ethan volunteered, the problems he solved, the loyalty he demonstrated, the sacrifices he made without expecting rewards. Many people in the audience looked shocked. They knew Ethan as a successful executive. They did not know the years of effort that came before success. Harold smiled, then delivered the final part of his message. The board never chose Ethan because he was the smartest person in the room. The board chose him because he was the most trustworthy. The audience rose to its feet. Applause thundered throughout the ballroom. Not polite applause. Not corporate applause. Real applause. The kind earned through years of consistency, years of integrity, years of character. Ethan stood quietly while the crowd celebrated. The recognition clearly made him uncomfortable, which somehow made people respect him even more. Among the crowd stood Amanda. She applauded too. Not because she expected another chance. Not because she hoped to change the past. Because she finally understood the entire story. The story had never been about becoming someone's boss. Never about money. Never about power. The real story was about character. The thing she overlooked. The thing Victor lacked. The thing Ethan possessed long before anyone recognized it. As the celebration continued, Amanda felt something unexpected. Peace. Not happiness. Not satisfaction. Peace. Because for the first time, she stopped blaming circumstances. Stopped blaming timing. Stopped blaming anyone except herself. Growth often begins when excuses end. Across the room, Ethan laughed with employees and their families. Not as a powerful executive. Not as a corporate leader. Simply as himself. The same person he had always been. The same person who walked away from that restaurant nearly 13 months earlier. The same person who refused to let someone else's opinion define his worth. That decision changed everything. Because true success did not begin when Ethan became Chief Operations Executive. It did not begin when he stood on stage. It did not begin when people applauded. Success began the moment he understood that another person's judgment could not determine his value. Everything afterward was simply evidence of a truth that already existed. And that truth eventually became visible to everyone, especially the woman who laughed the loudest. The dinner that was meant to expose a failure became the first chapter of a success story. The breakup that was supposed to end his future became the beginning of a better one. The humiliation that should have broken him became proof of his strength. Justice arrived. Not through revenge, not through cruelty, not through humiliation, but through truth. Because truth has a remarkable quality. It survives assumptions. It survives insults. It survives rejection. And eventually, if given enough time, it stands where everyone can see it. Amanda learned that lesson too late. Victor ignored it completely. Ethan lived it every day. And in the end, that made all the difference. The room slowly filled with music again. Conversations resumed. Families celebrated. The future stretched ahead. And somewhere within that crowded ballroom existed a lesson nobody present would ever forget. Never measure a person's worth by what they have today. Because character is invisible before success arrives. And by the time success reveals it, the opportunity to appreciate it may already be gone forever.